Hey, what's going on, guys? My name is Nick. Welcome back to the Sympathizer, chapter 16 today. Amazing chapter. Really good stuff. Some of the most exciting writing, I think, that we've gotten so far in the book. There are a couple of situations up to this point that I think you can kind of point to as being up there with some of the most kind of riveting writing that we've gotten so far. The escape from Saigon was pretty hair-raising. The actual murder of the major is pretty nuts. And then, of course, the accident scene in the Philippines where the Sympathizer almost gets blown up, I think is pretty awesome. But this chapter, I think, was probably the most kind of tense chapter that we've gotten in a very long time. If you're new here, welcome, and we usually do this in a similar fashion. I would say probably start with chapter 1 as opposed to starting with chapter 16. But welcome again, and we're going to do things pretty similar to how we've always done them. We'll do a general bare bones summary of the events of the chapter. We'll get into a more deep play-by-play of the events, and then we'll kind of take a magnifying glass and go almost line by line with one of the most exciting segments of the entire book. All that being said, let's get into our bare-bones summary for Chapter 16 of The Sympathizer. The General tasks the Sympathizer with taking care of their problem. Bowen and the Sympathizer shoot some pool. The Sympathizer opens up to Lana about his family, and a visit to Sonny ends with the Sympathizer taking matters into his own hands. So like I said, probably one of my favorite chapters that we've gotten this far. Really amazing stuff. Tense, emotional, exciting. So much good stuff happens in this chapter, between his conversation with Lana to the kind of meeting with Sonny at the end of the chapter. It's all really amazing. So let's get into our play-by-play summary. So the chapter starts with the Sympathizer and the General returning from the meeting at the country club. In the driveway of his home, the General says to the Sympathizer that if he really wants to go home, then he must do what needs to be done. Even though the message itself is pretty cryptic, the General is convinced that the Sympathizer is kind of smart enough to know what he's talking about, and as the reader, we can kind of also assume what the problem is that needs fixing. We get a little bit of the General's history at this point, a little bit about his 2 years in a communist prison camp, but for the most part, the main idea of this little interaction is the General tasking the Sympathizer with taking care of the Sonny problem. The Sympathizer then receives word from Mon that he should not return to Vietnam and that he is more valuable to the party in America. This spurs the Sympathizer to seek counsel from his closest friend and from another certified killer, Bowen. So the two visit a pool bar, which is apparently a haunt for Vietnamese refugees. I didn't know that the Southern Vietnamese liked pool that way, but cultural importance. I'm happy to learn about other people. Bowen states plainly, and I'm going to read kind of word for word what he says. He says, "You're an idiot, but I can't stop you from going. As for Sonny, nothing to feel bad about." So I think that the main idea from Bowen here is that, he agrees with the Sympathizer. He agrees with the General that the Sympathizer is better off in the United States and not going back to Vietnam. But he also is trying to kind of make the Sympathizer feel better about being tasked with killing this guy. Bowen then goes on to offer to take care of the problem himself while offering the Sympathizer credit for the killing, but this is something that doesn't necessarily interest the Sympathizer. He kind of ruminates on the crossing threshold separating those who have killed and those who have not. So he's kind of taking more of a metaphysical approach to the situation and, considering like a pre-killing life to a post-killing life, and kind of the maybe the wisdom, maybe the understanding, the knowledge that comes with taking another person's life. Bowen then goes on to comment about the nature of killing and, like we were saying before, the knowledge that is received through the action. But the sympathizer kind of pushes back, and he talks about how something like love and creation will be more educational and valuable than killing, but Bowen is really unconvinced at this point, as a family man, a former family man, I guess, at this point. But he says that when guys like him go and kill, everyone is happy, and nobody really wants to talk about the gory details of the killing itself, you know. He then offers some poignant advice on making sure the target is actually dead and is not simply playing dead. He says, press the eyeball, and if he reacts, then he's still alive, but if he doesn't, then he's dead. Bowen then attempts to assuage the sympathizer's misgivings on killing, on this killing in particular, telling him that this isn't even murder, this is assassination. The same tactics that they kind of employed when trying to calm the sympathizer's nerves about the killing of the major. I say them because, you know, the general is involved, Claude is involved. All these people are trying to convince the sympathizer that, you know, killing is not necessarily an issue when it's in relation to political, you know, there are political implications. It's progressed past killing, it's progressed past murder, and it's now in this kind of gray area of assassination where it, you know, it's not really, you don't really got to worry too much about it. Bowen discusses the nature of Republican judgment and the proximity to the Viet Cong that kind of precipitated a lot of the assassinations that he is talking about. And he closes his arguments by saying, take out this VC before he gets too big, before he turns others to VC. That's all it is. Nothing to feel sorry about, nothing to cry about. So obviously Bowen has kind of made his peace with the nature of killing. And he is a soldier, you know. He, for a lot of the time, he talks about how he's only good at one thing, and that one thing is dealing death. And this is him trying to kind of calm the sympathizer down about the situation. As someone who has never killed before, the sympathizer is obviously a little bit worried about the situation, and especially when it comes to killing someone like Sonny, who, even though he's not necessarily a friend, he's someone he has a history with, and now that history is becoming even more intertwined because of the Sophia situation. So he's trying to kind of detangle all of these different strands of emotionality involved in the killing, and Bowen is there to just remind him, this is not about him, this is not about you, this is not about Sophia. He doesn't even really know about the Sophia situation, but this is not about anything except for right versus wrong, us versus them, you know. It's taking the morality out of the killing and giving it to, you know, chalking it up to just being another casualty of the war. But then, like I said, the sympathizer considers whether or not Sonny is even VC. He considers the nature of the subversive at this point, and that because Sonny is so vocal, that there's no way he could possibly be a subversive agent. You know, he considers that the general or the madame are more likely to be candidates for subversive activity because they're so quiet about their movements, you know. He comments on the fact that maybe they are subversive, and one day they'll all look back on this and laugh. You know, I think that that's completely unrealistic and obviously untrue, but it's funny for the sympathizer to even be considering something like this because of the fact that he's, you know, he's got so much. It's so obvious that that's not the case, but wishful thinking, you know. After his pool night with Bowen, the sympathizer visits Lana a week later with a bottle of wine in tow. The two eat a dinner prepared by Lana, who's not really a spectacular cook. I think it's funny that he mentions that Lana's not a spectacular cook because all of the other Vietnamese women all of the other women for the most part that he's interacting with are pretty good cooks. So for him to finally, you know, find a woman that he enjoys being with in a meaningful way that's not really a spectacular cook, I think is, it's more or less, you know, it's a pros and cons thing. And unfortunately, Lana's just not really that great of a cook. The two watch The Jeffersons at her apartment living room and discuss the houses in the Hollywood Hills that they can see from her apartment window. The sympathizer talks about how the auteur lives up there, and then he talks about his accident in the Philippines and about how he has fantasized once or twice about exacting revenge on the auteur. the two talk about then killing their fathers, and the Sympathizer finally drops the bomb that his father was a priest. Lana, who is obviously surprised, endears herself to the Sympathizer with this surprise, and he comments on his primal desire to possess her sexually. Sympathizer gets a little bit deep here about his father and their relationship, or more or less their lack thereof. He admits to wanting his father to kind of bring him up on a Sunday and explain and own up to his parentage, stand him in front of the congregation and show him off as his son. But then he also says that he fantasized about killing him with a gun, and Lana then asks whether or not he forgives him. The Sympathizer considers this, and he says not really, because of his feelings about his mother and her death. Just then, an intimate moment unfolds, and the Sympathizer, surprisingly, removes himself from the situation. He leaves Lana's house, saying that there's something that must be done before he does what needs to be done here. And obviously Lana is surprised, which leads the Sympathizer to believe that this is not really a situation that she finds herself in often. The Sympathizer then drives to Sonny's apartment, breathing mindfully the way that Claude taught him to, and prepares to do what needs to be done. So that's leading up to where we're going to pretty much go line by line for our deep dive for this episode. I titled this in my notes, The Killing of Sonny. I hesitate to say that this is the best segment in the book thus far, but I think that it's probably on the short list of most intense and most engaging writing that we've gotten thus far. We kind of know what's going to happen, but it's interesting and it's fascinating, really, to see kind of how we get to the end point. I think this is real edge of the seat type writing, kind of breathless, reading as fast as you can in order to get to the next sentence, just to try and figure out where things go from this point. I think that if you have the chance, definitely read this segment over again, just because it's got so much good stuff from Sonny, who, his last hurrah in the story. He has a lot of really good stuff about his emotions and his feelings and his love for Miss Maury. Like I said, I think that this is some of the best writing that we've gotten in the book so far, and just so happens that it's going to be our deep dive for this episode. So the Sympathizer arrives at Sonny's apartment, and he kind of makes sure that he has everything according to the plan that he and Bond had formulated. He's got a change of clothes, which he dons in the car before he goes up. He has a blonde wig and a hat, and a Walther P-22 with a silencer procured from the same Chinese gang that supplied the 38 Special to Bond, who used that to kill the Major. Sympathizer walks up to Sonny's apartment and considers the building as a kind of microcosm of the American dream. Each person living inside the building has their own concept of the dream, but they're all kind of hollow reproductions of the actual American dream. So Sonny buzzes him up, and the Sympathizer is immediately greeted by the smell of a Vietnamese home, fried fish, steamed rice, and cigarette smoke. The Sympathizer notices the same wooden clock on the wall that hangs in the Madame's Pho restaurant, which is also set to Saigon time, and a typewriter obviously in use at the kitchen table. Sonny's apartment is kind of shabby. It's kind of not really well put together. Obviously a bachelor type situation. The Sympathizer comments a few times about the threadbare couch and the ugly painting hanging on the wall and how nothing really looks like it goes together, and kind of comments on Sonny's inability to more or less put a room together. Sonny greets him, and he says that he knows why the Sympathizer has come, the Sophia issue. Sonny defends himself in the relationship, saying that they should have been more considerate of the Sympathizer during his absence, but the Sympathizer kind of says that he should probably have written while he was away too, kind of absolving them of their responsibility and disclosing the relationship to him. Sonny offers the Sympathizer a drink and presents the perfect opportunity for the Sympathizer to do the deed, as recommended by Bond, but he remains planted to the couch due to his starchy dinner that Lana and he had enjoyed prior. Sonny returns with 2 glasses of bourbon, and the two begin to discuss recent Vietnamese raids on Cambodia. He comments on the general and his quick thinking when it came to some border disputes that were happening with the Khmer Rouge and the Laotians on their borders, but then he holds up his hand to apologize for talking politics. He then launches into a monologue about his feelings for Sophia and how he truly feels like he's in love with her, beginning with their meeting at the wedding and blossoming into a beautiful relationship for the two of them. Sonny continues discussing how he now pictures himself as a husband and a father with Sophia, and how she chided him on claiming America for his own. She says, "If you do not claim America, if America is not in your heart, America will throw you into a concentration camp or reservation or plantation." So some really good stuff from Sophia here, even though she's not even in the room. We're still kind of getting a little bit more Sophia perspective here. I really like the Sophia perspective a lot. I hope that with Sonny's untimely demise that, she isn't going to completely leave the story, because I really do think that she's got a lot of really cool and interesting things to say, especially on the kind of Asian American experience as told by someone who was born in America. A lot of the Asian American experiences that we have from this point have been based on foreign refugees for the most part, but she's got kind of the homegrown Asian American experience, and I think that that's really valuable and interesting to kind of juxtapose with the sympathizer's perspective, the general's perspective, Lana's, all of these different people's perspectives. I think that Miss Mori's got a very unique one in regards to this story itself, and I hope that we're not going to lose that point of view just because of Sonny's death. At this point, the sympathizer offers Sonny a confession. He confesses that he is, in fact, a communist agent and has been for years now. Sonny immediately flies into a rage, though, thinking that the sympathizer is trying to goad him into a confession that will then be used to kill him or expose him for his allegiances. But the sympathizer tries to calm him down. He's saying that he's there to protect him, which Sonny does not really believe. The sympathizer considers this confession, and he kind of ruminates on the fact that he had never considered that when he took off the mask, that the face that was underneath it would be just as ugly or just as, displeasing, he says, as his real face, or as the mask. So he's kind of dealing with the ramifications of exposing himself as his real self for the first time. Obviously, I think it's probably a bad time to be doing that, but maybe at the same time it's a great time, because he obviously knows he's gonna kill this guy, so why not let off that steam? He's been dealing with this pressure buildup for so long that it's got to come out eventually, right? And this is kind of a perfect opportunity to alleviate some of that stress that he's feeling on living the double life, when he's able to tell this person everything and then immediately not have to worry about any repercussions outside of the whole murder thing. Sonny redoubles his efforts, saying that the sympathizer is just jealous for his relationship with Sophia. He starts to mention something about how she will react when he tells her about this ploy from the sympathizer, but he's stopped mid-sentence as the sympathizer shoots and misses him at point-blank range. Sympathizer shoots him in his raised hand, and Sonny gets up to run away. Another shot hits Sonny in the back, and the sympathizer places 2 more in Sonny's head. 1 behind the ear and 1 in the skull. The sympathizer stood over Sonny's body, once again considers Sophia and how she is probably waiting for the call that will never come, and his mother's words are also resonating in his ears as well. After this little reverie, the sympathizer kind of gets back to work. He changes his clothes and he dons the blonde wig and the hat that were Bond's idea. He wipes his fingerprints from the glass and the door handle, and right before he leaves, he considers Bond's warning about people playing dead. He gets down on all fours and stares into Sonny's exposed and glassy eye. He touches it and then recoils when the lids flash closed, and he places another shot in his temple to seal the deal. The Sympathizer walks calmly back to his car, passing another resident from the building on his way there, and the chapter ends with the Sympathizer emptying the contents of his stomach on the street. So like I said, amazing chapter. Not really a whole lot of kind of, anthropological implications. There's not really a whole lot of depth to the events here. It's more just an exciting chapter based on the events themselves. I think that the whole Sonny problem has been a really interesting aside for the Sympathizer to deal with a lot of the things that he's been working through now that he's in America. And I think that the bearing of his communist allegiances to Sonny at the very end of his life, I think, is it's important. The Sympathizer is never, I don't think that he ever considered doing this, and he even talks about, like, why am I doing this, So I think that the Sympathizer is surprising himself here with his actions. So, there's like I said, there's not a whole lot of depth in terms of interpretation or kind of double meanings to things, but there's a lot of really good kind of metaphor in this chapter. There's a lot of really good, like I was saying earlier, there's a lot of really good stuff from Sonny about his relationship with Sophia and about how, he wanted to change the world, but he didn't want to change himself. And now that he's with Sophia, he finally feels like he's ready to settle down and kind of change in order to be a father and a husband and all this stuff. It's a lot of really, really good stuff from Sonny. And like I was saying earlier, I don't want to lose the Sophia perspective just because Sonny is no longer in the picture. I thought this chapter was amazing. As you could probably tell, I've said it, 5 or 6 times so far, and I'll probably say it a couple more times before we're done with the episode. But yeah, I'm really, really interested to see where the kind of Sympathizer storyline goes from here, because now he more or less has to flee the country, right? He's done a murder. The general said that he was eligible to go back to Vietnam once he did the murder. So now that he's done the murder, he's probably going to be out. I'm interested to see kind of where things shake out from here. Killing a journalist is generally not a good look for a political party. You're generally not trying to silence dissidents through killing. You're not really trying to silence dissidents in general, but I think that this situation is going to kind of have some important ramifications for the Sympathizer and his next few chapters. I think that we might be in for the Sympathizer returning to Vietnam, and maybe he gets imprisoned in some capacity while he's over there, and that's kind of where he's writing the confession from. Who knows? I don't want to speculate too much because I don't want to ruin it for myself. But yeah, this chapter was a banger. I read it and then I had to reread it in order to write my notes, and I might go back and reread it one more time before starting chapter 17 because I just enjoyed it so much. Amazing general stuff, amazing Bowen stuff at the pool hall, amazing Lana stuff. I mean, really, just heavy hits from all the usual suspects. An absolute pleasure to read, and I hope that you enjoyed it even half as much as I enjoyed it. That is probably going to do it for this one, though. Thank you so much for watching and sticking around to the end. Let me know what you thought about the chapter, and if there's anything that I missed in particular. I kind of got into the minutia a little bit, too much in my opinion in some cases, but if I missed anything important, let me know. I'll be happy to shout it out and talk about it in the next one. I think that's going to do it. Thank you again for sticking around, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one.